Well, good day and welcome back. Well, I have here one of my favorite typewriters. This is the 1947 Royal KMM. I love using this machine. For a manual typewriter, I can probably type faster than any other machine in my collection because the keyboard is so nice. The spacing of the keys is really good. I like the round keys where they're dished in. They kind of snugly hold your fingertips. And especially the shift lock does not interfere with the A key. It's closer up to the Q key. Anyway, it's a nice keyboard for rapid touch typing. But I did have one little nagging problem with it, and that is the paper bale up here. This has a very hefty duty paper bale mechanism, and the spring tension that holds the paper bale rollers to the platen I thought was a little too heavy. And what it was causing was, as I type and advance the line, as the paper advances, the tension on the paper bale rollers was high enough that the paper, instead of rolling freely underneath the rollers, the paper is starting to curve out in front of the platen because it can't get underneath the rollers as easy. And you can kind of hear the sound difference as the type slugs hit the paper. They were making a different kind of a noise, like a hollow sound, because the paper is no longer stuck to the platen but sticking out in front of it by a few millimeters. And also then, if I momentarily pulled the paper bale forward and released it, it would reset the paper, but that would interrupt the line. The printing position on the line would be different. So what I was having to do as a makeshift is every time I did a carriage return, I would have to remember to just cycle the paper bale up and down like that, just to reset it so the paper's snug against the platen. Well, I decided, you know what, there's probably an adjustment for this. I don't know where it's at, but I'm going to go take a look at it, and then you and I together will go in there and we'll do this adjustment if there is one and see how it works. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to start by taking off the right carriage cover, starting with the screw underneath the cover near the front. And the back screw on the right carriage side cover. Take that off as well. All right, so now I'm going to just tilt the side cover down like that to gain access to this screw right here. Okay, so this is the screw right here. This bracket right here is the right side of the paper bale. And this surface down here is hitting this little gap in this cam. This kind of spacer on this bolt is like an eccentric cam, and hitting the gap in it means that the paper bale is going as far down as it can, which gives maximum spring tension, which we don't want. So I'm going to take a screwdriver, loosen up this screw a little bit, and then I'm going to pull the paper bale forward to relieve spring tension and rotate this collar. See, this is kind of like a little cam. So now the base of this bracket is riding on the cam itself rather than in the gap on the end of the cam. So let's tighten that down like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing to the left side of the carriage. Okay, I'm going to loosen up the screw on the left side of the carriage. And I'm going to rotate that cam about like that, like where the other one is. So we're going to have to hold this in place so it doesn't rotate. Like that. That is there. Now let's see how the paper bale feels with a piece of paper on it. Okay, the first thing I want to do is check the rollers are rotating, so that the paper bale is far enough down to where the rollers are actually touching, which is what we want. So I can kind of tell that it's quite a bit lighter in tension, which is what I want. But the real test is going to be a piece of paper. And for this test, you want to use a very flexible, thin paper. That's the kind of paper that's more susceptible to this problem. So this is a sheet of newsprint paper. And putting it in the machine, threading it up, So now I just want to look at this kind of edge on the edge of the paper between the paper and the platen. I'm kind of looking to see if there's a gap. And it looks like it's staying nice and tight against the platen. That looks pretty good. Next, I want to try a sheet of regular printer paper, copy paper. All right, let's see here how this looks. That looks nice and tight. I don't see it poofing up too much. Staying nice and tight. Well, that adjustment turned out to be easier than I thought, and I got them pretty close on both ends. And I noticed, though, that the left-hand paper Bale roller is a little bit darker and shinier rubber than the right one, and also it looks like it's a little bit bigger in diameter. So that causes the right-hand roller being slightly smaller. When you start to lift the paper Bale off, the right-hand one is the one that is free to turn before the left one is, but that's wasn't really causing the problem. The problem was just the tension was too heavy on the springs, or well, the spring tension is still the same, but where the hard stop is, the paper Bale comes back, where the hard stop is a little bit further forward, so it's not pressing on the paper quite as hard. And I have definitely noticed the difference as I've done some test typing here and write some letters. I don't have that problem anymore with the paper bunching up a little bit in the front of the platen. So the tale here is that I lived with this problem for quite a while, and I should have gone immediately into it and looked at it and fixed it, but now it's fixed and I feel a lot better about it because this is one of my favorite typewriters, certainly is. And I think if I had to have one manual typewriter for serious long form writing, it would really be hard to beat a KMM or one of these Royals of this era because they are so fast and they have a really good keyboard, at least for my hands. Well, I'm just encouraging you through this little tale that if you have a typewriter with a nagging little problem, you should look into it and see if you can't fix it yourself. And there are some resources out there. If you go to the classic typewriter page, that's Richard Polt's page, under manuals, there is a section for service manuals. Not every typewriter is listed there for service manuals, but the ones that are there, they're free for you to access and download and use as a resource. And then, of course, our friend Ted Monk, who runs the typewriter database, also has available service manuals, either software or paper, coil-bound, lay-flat manuals. I have a whole stack of them back there on the bookcase. I love them. They're worth the money. They're worth the expense of getting a factory manual where you know how to do the proper adjustments and alignments. Well, I wish you the very best in your writing and creative ventures. As always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day, and bye-bye for now.